Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. And joining me, as he so often does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew, we're here for part one of the four-part series we're doing on the Carolina football program. We're going to be in this series, we're going to be looking back a little bit, looking ahead as well. But we're going to start on this one talking about the returning guys, the seniors that have decided to come back for their extra year of eligibility due to the NCAA rule and will return for Carolina during the 2021 season. Going to go ahead and list those guys off right now. You got Garrett Walston, Grayson Atkins, Beau Corrales, Tyrone Hopper, and the latest one that we actually just heard about not too long ago, Tomon Fox has decided to come back. We talked to Mac earlier this week. He said Tomon Fox was still trying to make a decision, and he has made that decision now. He will return for another year at Carolina. So you've got, five guys there that are returning to Carolina that not only played significant minutes on last year's team, but have been around the program for a while as well. So really positive news for the program as a whole. I think we both agree on that. Let's start with, why not Garrett Walston? A tight end, a guy that played a lot of snaps for Carolina last year, was kind of targeted a little bit more towards the end of the season, especially in the Orange Bowl as well. Good blocker, really solid tight end. I mean, how big is his return when you consider some of the other guys? I mean, you've got guys in that room, Kamari Morales, Kendall Carr, John Copenhaver. You've got some young guys there. But when you look at his experience and how many snaps he's played for this team, I think him returning is a big plus for not only offense, but that tight end room as a whole.
Well, I'll put it this way. If Jake Vargas can play in the NFL, so can Garrett Walston. Exactly. Now, I had a couple of assistants on the previous staff tell me a couple of years ago that they said Vargas would play in the NFL. Real good blocker. I think underutilized previously. And even last year, the first year of the Longo, Mac Brown staff and stuff, maybe he didn't really fit in. They had Carl Tucker. He was more athletic, whatever. But Vargas is in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Garrett Walston is a more talented player.
Yeah.
He could catch the ball over the middle. He can catch the ball going downfield over the middle. Got a little giddy up under him. He's an excellent blocker, smart player. And I think someone, as you said, in the Orange Bowl, how we saw Carolina use him in the Orange Bowl, I think you're going to see more of next year. He only caught 19 passes this year, but he wasn't targeted. He's got a high catch per target rate. Mm-hmm. We will see him utilize more, but also having that really good blocker and that really experienced guy out there is a plus. They have other tight ends. Mm-hmm. I think they would have been okay tight end with Kamari Morales and Copenhaver and Kendall Carr. And they have Bryson Nesbitt coming in, though he's not going to arrive until the summer. And they've got a nice room there, but if you have a chance of getting a guy that could play in the NFL back for another year, especially on an offense that has to replace a lot of dudes with that produced numbers, it's a huge get for Carolina that Garrett's coming back.
Yeah, completely agree. I think Garrett Walston, just his experience in that room, and a reliable guy, like you said, good blocker. He doesn't really drop a lot of passes. If you toss him the rock, he's usually going to catch it and then do something good with it. So I think
really good 2-point conversion guy too. Yeah. He's got a few of those in his career. Mm-hmm. Great target in the end there because he's big and strong, and he gets in. He gets good position with the receiver. He's going to get the ball.
Exactly. A smart kid too. So I think Garrett Walston overall coming back is a big positive for the offense as a whole. And, just gives a little bit more of that veteran kind of leadership, not only for the offense as a group, but, that tight end position room, like I mentioned, in particular. Let's go move on to, let's stay on the offense. Let's stay with Beau Corrales. Beau, another guy that missed a lot of this season. I think he played 4 games. The Florida State game was his last one. Missed a lot of the season through injury. I think he ended up having surgery as well. So not the season that, Beau Corrales has wanted. He's had in his time at Carolina, he's had a few seasons. He's really struggled to play the whole year. And most of the time he's been here at Carolina through injury, but not really a surprise with him coming back when you consider, how young Carolina's wide receiver room is, how little he got to play this season. And, if he was to, for some reason declare for the NFL draft instead, you would think with just the limited tape that teams would have on him this year that he wouldn't have had a good shot at making a team. Maybe would have had an opportunity, but would have probably been on the outside looking in terms of that. So not really a surprise with Beau Corrales coming back. And I think that one in particular is a huge positive when you consider kind of, they're losing Diami, losing Daz, a lot of young up-and-coming guys that have a lot of potential and have proven a little bit that they can play at this level. But you got a guy like Beau Corrales who's been around for a while and has done it at the highest level. So, yeah, I think that's just a big plus for this program as a whole.
Well, I think Beau would have gotten into a camp somewhere and had an opportunity. But really, when you think about Yeah, I mean, he's a very talented kid. I mean, the only drawback on Beau has been that sometimes he drops the ball thrown right to him.
Yeah.
He's got a flair for the dramatic,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes drops the thing right to him with nobody around.
Yeah.
But it appeared that he had cut down on that some in the 4 games that we saw, and he was still making the great catches. I think the thing about Beau is that even if there was no NCAA rule this year allowing kids to come back, he still may have been a guy coming back anyway because he only played in 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And you could play 4 games as a redshirt. So, and that's also, remember, the reason he may have made a decision like that is that he's only had 1 full season in Carolina.
That's a good point.
He plays as a true freshman. He didn't really start playing like the 8th game. The next year, he missed 3 games because of the Shoegate suspension. And Mac's first year, he had a full season, and it was very good. And then this year, he played in 4 games. So what they have coming back with Beau, you've got 80 receptions and 12 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You've got a guy that's made some really, really big catches.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a guy that is very talented, can run the routes. He's excellent in the red zone. You could throw that fade to him. He's physical. He's athletic. He can get up in the air. He can grab those difficult balls. And when you think about it, you've got Garrett back and you've got Beau back. That's 109 receptions and 15 touchdowns. And people say, God, who's going to catch passes next year? Because Diami's gone and Daz is gone. Well, those 2 guys bolster a very talented group that includes Downs and Joffrey Brown and Emery Simmons and that whole crew. So I think Carolina's pass catching guys are going to be in good shape next year.
Yeah, completely agree. I think Beau Corrales is when you look at that wide receiver room, the young, guys that are coming along, and you also can throw Antoine Green in that mix. And then you throw a guy like Beau Corrales in that mix as well, who's been there, who's done that, was supposed to be a starter this year before he got hurt. I mean, overall, I think it's a really big positive for the offense and the wide receiver room. He's going to be one of those leaders in that room that can kind of bring those young guys along. AJ, let's talk about Grayson Atkins now. Obviously transferred from Furman, graduate transfer. I believe he's still working on his graduate degree. So not really surprised that he's staying. Only had 1 year at Carolina as well. I think overall he had a pretty decent year. Carolina didn't kick a ton of field goals because they were just so good at putting the ball in the end zone when it came to getting in the red zone. So he did have some misses he'd probably like to have back, but was really good with his extra points overall. But I think when you look at Carolina, you got Noah Ruggles heading out. There's nobody really behind Grayson Atkins. If Grayson Atkins was to have moved on, Carolina would be kind of scrambling for a kicker. I mean, you got Jonathan Kim, but he's attempted about 1 field goal kick in his life at Carolina. I think we know how that one went. So I think Grayson Atkins is a big positive for the special teams because, when you're trying to be a really good program, you got to have a kicker that can get you out of some tough situations sometimes. And I think they're going to end up having that in Grayson Atkins, and especially going into next year as he kind of gets used to playing at this level.
Yeah, I think Ruggles made his decision after Atkins decided to come back. So he kind of realized, well, I'm probably not going to win the job next year.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think getting Atkins back is huge. He was perfect on all 63 of his PATs, 12 for 18 on field goals. And most of the misses were long kicks. And I think they'd like to see him be a little better there. Every once in a while, they may go ahead and just take the points when they're in that, do you go for it or do you not go for it situation. But having a veteran back there, a guy that's been around, a guy who's going to finish his master's, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Nothing like trading in football for a master's degree.
Yeah,
again, having guys back that have done it before is important. And I think the expectations are that he can be better and will be better. Mac has a high standard for his kickers. Yeah. He spoke about that when he mentioned Grayson a few times this year. That Mac, even one press conference, I think it was after he had a miss, it was less than 30 yards, a kick against State. Maybe he missed, and next week. Mac was almost like trying to sell us how good he was at Furman, because none of us saw him at Furman. So I think the standard is there, and one of the deals with him coming back is you got to be better.
Yeah.
You don't come back just to come back because, hey, I can get another year of my education paid for. You've got to make the team better, make the program better. So I think they believe that Grayson Atkins can be better than he was this past year.
Agreed, AJ. Last 2 guys, let's kind of lump them into the same. We can talk about those 2 guys at the same time. Tyrone Hopper, Tomon Fox, obviously 2 guys, experienced guys that have played on the defensive line and been to this program for a while. I mean, we've talked about it before, but it's kind of crazy to think that Tomon Fox played in that game down in the Georgia Dome, and the old Georgia Dome that doesn't even exist anymore. Well, Mitch Trubisky's first start for Carolina against the Bulldogs. He actually played in that game as a freshman. So Tomon Fox, a guy who's been around the program forever. Tyrone Hopper's kind of in the same boat. You kind of feel like those guys have been around here for a long time, and they're both deciding to come back. I mean, Tyrone Hopper's a guy that I think you mentioned it before, hasn't he's been in Carolina for a while, but barring this season, he hasn't really played a lot due to some injuries and some other things. And then you got Tomon Fox, who's really just been a very consistent performer for this team. Started this year, played a ton of snaps, did it the previous year as well, and even before that. So two guys that have been around the program for a long time, two guys that are proven and are good at what they do, especially Tomon Fox. And then when you consider how many young guys Carolina kind of has on that defensive line, I think their experience and the leadership that they bring is really just invaluable for moving the program forward and continuing to develop some of those younger guys.
I remember sitting in the press box at Illinois, the second game of the 2016 season. It
was like forever.
I know, it does. And Tomon chased down the Illinois quarterback, and I remember thinking, boy, they got a few more years of that guy.
Yeah.
I had no idea that it would take him into 2021. I mean, Tomon played with Ryan Switzer and Mitch Trubisky.
That was crazy.
And Tomon got 75 snaps in the first two games that season against Georgia and Illinois. He was playing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's coming back. He's played over 2,500 snaps at Carolina. He has 146 tackles, tied for fifth all time in sacks with Lawrence Taylor.
Good company.
With 21.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tomon's going to play more than 3,000 snaps in a Carolina uniform. He's going to be a contributor for 6 seasons, which is wild.
It is.
The strangeness of 2020 is going to bleed over into 21, but this is a great pickup for Carolina. I say pickup because I don't think that I don't know if they would have thought that was even a possibility a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Tomon, for him, this is a great situation. He can get into grad school and further his education, play a ton of football at Carolina, and wow, I mean, what an opportunity to be on teams that won 5 games in 2 years, and then you end up going to the Orange Bowl, and whatever they do next year. And having that experience there will be big. We don't know what some of the younger guys are going to be like full time. So had Hopper and Tomon moved on, I think that hybrid position would be a question mark next year. Mm-hmm. Even though it's talented, it's hard to project guys doing something if they haven't done it much.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in a position like that with the demands that Jay Bateman puts on guys in that position. So Tomon can do it, and he'll make that group a lot better. And he's another old voice in that room. And then Tyrone Hopper is an interesting story as well, Jacob, because he didn't play a ton. He's banged up a little bit. He had that suspension as well from Shoegate, and he never really got on the field a whole lot until his junior year. He had a stretch where he played a decent amount, but he's only played like 1,100 snaps.
I know he's been
most of it was this year. So he's still getting better. I mean, he's still learning on the field because he didn't have a whole lot of reps in the past, and he had sequences in which he was outstanding. And then he had stretches in which he kind of let himself get taken out of plays, and he still got to learn, still got to get better. But I'll tell you what, though, when Tyrone Hopper is at his high level, he's chasing quarterbacks out of the pocket. And a couple of times, some of the interceptions that Carolina got this year were with Tyrone Hopper in pursuit.
He's a big dude.
So I think a more consistent Tyrone Hopper, and then with Tomon Fox over there, Jay Bateman talks about wanting to play a lot of guys and keeping dudes fresh. Well, that hybrid position just got a lot fresher having those two guys playing 30, 50 snaps a game next year for him. This is really big. These are 5 players that, when people talk about what they lost, well, talk about what they got coming back. Yeah. They're all very important positions. They're all players that by coming back, make this a better team. They also give it a lot more gravitas. I mean, we're talking dudes that are 22 years old, 23 years old. Come on, I guess 23 when the next season starts. We're talking guys that have been around. And, you want to be able to get a little bit old and stay a little bit old in basketball and football and college because it really helps teams win. Well, Carolina is going to be a fairly mature team now, having these 5 faces in that locker room, those voices, the standard that they work to. This is really, really big for the team. I didn't know when I found out about 2 months ago, whatever it was, 3 months ago, they were going to let kids come back. I guess it's probably longer. What are we, in January? You know how the season grinds. It was a while ago. And I did think that Beau would be a candidate, especially when he got hurt. I thought Beau would have been a perfect candidate.
That wasn't a big surprise.
Wasn't sure about anyone else. Garrett Walston surprised me. And Tomon kind of surprised me a little bit too. But for Carolina to get these 5 guys, and then you think about the recruiting class coming in, I think North Carolina football is getting better as a result.
Exactly. And I think make no mistakes about it. If with these 5 guys returning, they wouldn't have been returning if Carolina didn't want them back. If Mac didn't want them back and didn't think they could contribute to the program in a lot of ways. So yeah, Garrett Walston,
make them better.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what it's all about. So Garrett Walston.
It's just like.
Go ahead, AJ. You got it.
It's just like the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because Matt told us about talking about the transfer portal the other day. He said, we're not just because a kid wants to come here. I mean,
doesn't mean
they're not. There's a lot of kids that want to go there right now because it's kind of becoming an IT program. It's one of the trajectory is toward being one of the IT programs because there's Max said, I want to make this the cool place to be. Well, it is one of the cool places to be. So they've got a lot of kids, I'm sure, that want to go there. But how many of them could make Carolina better? Mm-hmm. Well, they're getting 5 that are already in the program, that already know the culture, that are fully bought in, that have already produced, that are coming back there to make them better. So imagine if these 5 were available in the transfer portal. Every program in America would scoff them up.
Oh, yeah.
So Carolina gets them. So that's huge. That's an upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big plus, like I mentioned, when you consider how young this team is going to be next year. Obviously, you've got guys that are coming back, but a lot of these guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they're young, and even for a big part on the offense as well, are pretty young. So big returners, and I think in some key position rooms for Carolina. And just to go over those guys again, Garrett Walston, Beau Corrales, Grayson Atkins, Tyrone Hopper, and Tomon Fox, the latest one, who about 5 minutes before we hopped on this podcast decided he was going to come back. So yeah, I think overall really positive.
Yeah, Jacob, be honest with everybody.
I got to be honest. I'm gonna let you
just finish the podcast.
We just a little backstory. We did the podcast, and it couldn't have been more than a minute after we hopped off. Actually, we were still on. And you said, "Oh, Tomon Fox just announced. Let me hop off real quick so I can put something."
We had finished our last one.
Yeah.
And then Dina sent me Mac's tweet. I was like, oh.
And we're like, man,
I got to write this real fast.
Yeah, and we're trying to put the podcast out today. I'm like, it'd be a bad look if we put it out without mentioning without not knowing about Tomon Fox when he just announced. So yeah, Tomon Fox put us in a little bit of a tight spot today. But hey, man,
although we did tease in that podcast. We were waiting to see what he's going to do.
Exactly. He was just waiting for us to finish recording, and then as soon as I logged off of Zoom, he decided to announce. So
people have no idea. People have no idea how many podcasts we do that we scrap it. And like in a game, you seem like I delete 3,500, 4,000 words a game.
Yeah, they have no idea.
You're right during the course of the game, and then by the time the game ends, it's like,
oh, yeah, I can't use any of that. It's wasted my time typing all that. But yeah, I mean, shout out to Tomon for doing that for us, man, keeping us on our toes over here. But
absolutely,
exactly, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this podcast. Like I said, this is the first edition of the 4-part series we are doing on the Carolina football program. So you guys be sure to check back over the next week or so as we continue to roll those podcasts out. And as always, guys, stay locked into TarHeelIllustrated.com and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel over here on YouTube, Tar Heel Illustrated. As always, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.